In the heart of Dubai, where skyscrapers touch the heavens and fortunes are made overnight, a night of celebration was about to take a scandalous turn. The air was thick with the scent of oud and roses, the kind of fragrance that clings to secrets. A grand ballroom shimmered under golden chandeliers, diamonds sparkled on delicate wrists, and whispers of power and wealth danced between glasses of the finest champagne. But amid the glittering gowns and crisp tailored suits, no one, absolutely no one, was prepared for what was about to happen. Because in this sea of high society, where every move is measured and every word weighed, an Arab millionaire, a man whose very name commanded respect, stood tall, his presence alone enough to silence the room. He lifted his glass, a smirk playing at the corner of his lips. Then, without hesitation, he turned to a woman draped in black silk, a widow whose very existence had been shrouded in mourning. And in front of every pair of watching eyes, he did the unthinkable. "Marry me," he said. The room gasped. Eyes widened. Someone dropped a glass. Because this wasn't just any woman, she was his late brother's wife. And just like that, the night turned from a celebration into a storm. One that would shake a powerful family, unearth dangerous secrets, and expose a truth no one saw coming. But the real question? Did she say yes? Oh, buckle up, because what happens next is nothing short of shocking. The silence in the ballroom stretched, thick and suffocating. You could hear the sound of a single heartbeat. No, wait, maybe that was a Rolex ticking too loud. The widow, eyes dark as the Arabian night, stared at the man who had just shattered every unspoken rule of family, tradition, and decency. A proposal from her late husband's brother in front of everyone? Oh, this wasn't just scandalous. It was suicidal. Murmurs rippled through the crowd like wildfire. Some guests exchanged knowing glances, others raised perfectly sculpted brows. Somewhere near the back, an elderly aunt clutched her pearls as if the sheer audacity of this moment might send her straight into the afterlife. The millionaire, however, stood unfazed, one hand in his pocket, the other still outstretched, his expression unreadable, cocky, confident, or maybe just reckless enough not to care about the chaos unfolding around him. And then a voice, sharp, clipped, laced with disbelief. "Are you insane?" Ah, there it was. The widow had finally spoken. The tension in the room twisted tighter, coiling like a snake ready to strike. Was she angry, shocked, secretly thrilled? Even she didn't seem to know, her hands clenched at her sides, nails digging into her palm. But if anyone thought she would simply nod, bat her lashes, and let this night turn into some royal wedding fantasy, they clearly didn't know who they were dealing with. Because this woman, she had a secret of her own. And if the millionaire thought he could waltz into her life, rewrite her grief, and claim her like a prize, oh, he had no idea what was coming next. The silence stretched long enough to crack. Every set of eyes in the room locked onto the widow, waiting, holding their breath. The tension, thicker than the millionaire's wallet. The stakes, higher than the penthouses towering over the Dubai skyline. And yet the widow didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. But inside, oh, inside was a storm, one that had been brewing for far too long. Because this wasn't just about a proposal. This wasn't just about a man who thought he could rewrite fate with a diamond ring and a confident smirk. No, this was about something much bigger. A past she had buried, a secret she had sworn to keep, a truth that, if spoken, could bring an empire crashing to its knees. And yet here he was, standing in front of her, arrogant as ever, looking at her as if he already knew her answer. As if she were just another piece of the puzzle he could put in place. As if, despite the whispers, despite the judgment, despite the fact that her heart was still tied to the grave of his brother, she would say yes. She almost laughed. Instead, she stepped forward, slow, deliberate, a queen in her own right, draped in mourning but carrying herself like she owned the very air they breathed. Her gaze locked onto his, unflinching, daring. And then, in a voice so calm it sent shivers down the spine of even the most seasoned men in the room, she spoke. "You think you can just have me?" A collective inhale, a ripple of unease, The millionaire's smirk faltered, just a fraction, but she saw it. And oh, that tiny crack. That was all she needed. She leaned in, close enough that only he could hear the next words that left her lips. Be careful what you wish for, because once I say yes, you'll never be able to take it back. And just like that, the game had changed. What no one in this room knew, what even he didn't know, was that this proposal, it wasn't just an unexpected twist of fate, it was a test, a trap. And if he thought he was the one pulling the strings, oh, he was in for the shock of his life. Because she had just decided she was going to accept. And when she did, the real story would begin. The room stood frozen, hanging on the precipice of her decision. He had thrown down the gauntlet, and now she was picking it up, but not in the way he expected. Not with gratitude, not with submission, and certainly not with love. No, the widow was stepping into the fire with full knowledge of what it could burn. Because if there was one thing she had learned in this world, it was that power wasn't given, it was taken. And this was her move. The millionaire's dark eyes flickered with something. Was it intrigue, amusement, or had he, just for a second, realized he had bitten off more than even he could chew? It didn't matter, because she was about to do the unthinkable. She extended her hand, the same hand that once wore his brother's ring, the same hand that had spent nights clenched in grief, in longing, in memories too dangerous to relive. And now it hovered between them, delicate and deadly all at once. A slow smirk curled on her lips, the kind that could make a man second-guess everything he ever thought he knew, the kind that whispered danger. I accept. The words were silk-wrapped daggers, slicing through the air. A gasp rippled through the room, half in shock, half in delight. A scandal unfolding right before their eyes. A drama money couldn't buy, and yet, here they were, front-row spectators to the beginning of something explosive. But before the whispers could erupt into chaos, before anyone could truly process what had just happened, the widow took one step closer. So close that she could see the tension in his jaw, the barely perceptible shift in his stance. She tilted her head, watching him the way a lioness watches prey that thinks it's a predator. But don't mistake this for surrender, she murmured, voice just for him. You may have set the rules, but I play to win. And then, without another word, without waiting for his reaction, she turned, walked away, left him standing there, proposal accepted, deal sealed, but for the first time in his life, completely unsure of what he had just gotten himself into. Because what no one knew, what even he didn't know, was that she had her own reasons for saying yes. And when the truth came out, it wouldn't just shake his world, it would destroy it. The widow walked away, but the storm she left behind? Oh, it was just beginning. The murmurs erupted into chaos the second she disappeared from sight. Aunts whispering behind jeweled hands, men shaking their heads in disbelief, women glancing at their husbands, silently wondering if they, too, were capable of such betrayal. The room that had once been filled with laughter and music was now a battlefield of opinions, judgment, and speculation. Some called it scandalous, others called it disgraceful. But one thing was certain, no one saw it coming. And the millionaire? For the first time in years, he felt something he wasn't used to. Not control, not power, not even satisfaction. He felt unsettled, because this wasn't how it was supposed to go. She was supposed to hesitate, to resist, to crumble under the weight of expectations, of grief, of propriety. He had expected a fight, but what he got? A woman who stepped into the fire willingly, who didn't just accept his proposal, she claimed it. And now, standing there in the center of the grand ballroom, his name already making headlines, his fate already being sealed in the court of public opinion, he had one terrifying realization. He had underestimated her. And that was dangerous, because there were things he didn't know. Like the fact that she had been waiting for this moment, that while he thought he was making the first move, she had been calculating hers for far longer. That her acceptance? Oh, it wasn't about love. It wasn't about loyalty. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about something far bigger, something buried deep in the past, something that, once unearthed, would rewrite everything he thought he knew. Not just about her, not just about his late brother, but about himself. And when the truth finally came to light, this wouldn't just be a shocking engagement. It would be war. The world outside didn't wait. The headlines were already spreading like wildfire. Billionaire sheikh proposes to his late brother's wife. Love or betrayal? The internet was eating it up, dissecting every possible angle. Some called it a grand forbidden romance. Others called it disgraceful. And the family? Oh, the family was in full-blown meltdown mode. His mother, a woman whose word was law in their world, sat stone-faced in her private chamber, fingers tightening around a prayer bead. His father? Silent, but the kind of silence that carried the weight of 1,000 unsaid words. And the rest of them, the brothers, the cousins, the elders, stood divided. Some whispered of honor, others whispered of consequences. But the one thing no one dared say out loud, that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't his decision at all. Because the widow, the woman now carrying his name before she even wore his ring, had set something in motion that not even he could control. And as he stepped out of the ballroom, the cool desert air meeting his heated skin, he felt something shift, something unspoken, a game, unseen but already in play. And whether he liked it or not, she was playing it too. And she was playing to win. Meanwhile, the widow stood by the window of her private suite, overlooking the glittering city below. A city built on power, on secrets, on control. And she knew, better than anyone, that in this world, the strongest didn't survive by following the rules. They survived by breaking them. She reached for a small velvet box hidden in the drawer, her fingers brushing against the cold metal inside. A ring, one that no longer belonged on her finger, but still carried a story no one else knew, a secret she had buried deep. But now it was time to bring it to the surface. Because if he thought this engagement was his move, if he thought he was in control, he had no idea what was coming next. Because this wasn't just about a proposal, this was about vengeance. The engagement was official. The world knew, the family knew, and now there was no turning back. But behind the grand celebrations, the carefully curated smiles, and the lavish gifts, something darker was brewing. Because in this world, where power was currency and love was just another business deal, nothing was ever as it seemed. And as the widow walked down the hallways of her new reality, she could feel the weight of eyes watching her, judging her, waiting for her to fail. But failure? That wasn't in her nature. She had made her choice, and now she would see it through. But not as a damsel, not as a grieving widow looking for comfort. No, she would play the role she was given, but on her terms, because the man she had just agreed to marry, he was hiding something too. And if she was right, if the whispers, the late-night phone calls, the missing pieces in her husband's past all connected the way she suspected, then this wasn't just a game of love and power, it was a trap. And only one of them would make it out unscathed. The invitations were sent. The media was in a frenzy. The family tried to contain the scandal, but it was too late. The world loved the drama. The idea of a billionaire prince sweeping his brother's widow off her feet was the kind of tale that sold headlines, whether people believed in love or just craved the chaos. But behind the extravagant gowns, the silk-draped tables, and the 1,000-guest reception, there was one undeniable truth. This wasn't a wedding, it was a reckoning. Because as she stood before him, draped in gold and secrets, she wasn't just saying vows, she was claiming her place. And when she looked into his eyes, she saw it, a flicker of doubt, a question he was too proud to ask. Had he just made the biggest mistake of his life? The whispers started on their wedding night. Strange phone calls, vanishing documents, a name, one she hadn't heard in years, appearing in places it shouldn't. And suddenly all the missing pieces started clicking into place. Her late husband's death, the sudden wealth, the proposal that came too soon. She had always suspected, always felt something wasn't right. But now she knew. And the man sleeping beside her, the one the world called her husband. He was at the center of it all. She had married him to find the truth. Now she had to decide what to do with it, because what she had just uncovered, it wasn't just a betrayal, it was deadly. The game was over. The truth was out. And now, it was time to end it. The widow was no longer a pawn. She had played the part, smiled through the lies, kissed the lips of the man who had taken everything from her, and won. Because as the millionaire sat across from her, staring at the documents she had just placed in front of him, his face paled for the first time. "What is this?" he asked, voice low. She smiled. "Proof." And just like that, the empire he had built, the secrets he had buried, the power he had held so tightly, all of it crumbled. Because in the end, this wasn't a love story. It was a story of revenge. And she had just delivered the final blow. Checkmate. She thought it was over. She had played her final move, walked away with her victory, and left the man who had taken everything from her in ruins. His power? Gone. His secrets? Exposed. His empire? Collapsing right before his eyes. But just as she turned to leave, heels clicking against the marble floor, a low chuckle stopped her in her tracks. A slow, deep, knowing laugh. She turned, and there he was, leaning back, fingers drumming against the armrest, eyes filled with something that sent a chill down her spine. Not anger, not defeat, but amusement. "You really think you won?" His voice was smooth, taunting. "Oh, Habibti, you were never playing against me." Her breath caught. Something shifted in the air. Something wrong. And then, before she could move, before she could even process, he slid a folder across the table. She hesitated, fingers tightening at her sides. But she had come this far, so she opened it. And what she saw made her blood run cold. Because inside were her secrets, her past, the one thing she thought no one knew, the one thing she had buried so deep, not even she dared speak of it, was staring right back at her. Her throat went dry. "You see," he murmured, standing up, his presence suddenly suffocating, "I let you think you were in control. I let you dig, let you play your little game. Because while you were busy trying to destroy me," he leaned in, voice dark with promise, "I was preparing to destroy you." Her pulse pounded. Because this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. Who really won? And more importantly, who would survive? The end, or is it?